everybody, and welcome to another episode of Bearded Things. I am your solo bearded host, here completely all on my own, all by myself. My name's Christopher. You can find me at the Christopher Alton on Instagram. And that's it. This is my show now. I'm just kidding. I'm here with my buddy Tyler. He is my co-host, my pal, my broski. Tyler, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. A little bit of weird opening we got some interesting fan mail.
Yes.
Last week, because of last week's episode, Chris started the episode saying, like, I am your host, Chris, just introducing himself, and then introduced me. And apparently some of you weren't fond of that because you thought that somehow the dynamic shifted and I wasn't part of the show, or I wasn't as big of a part as they thought. But this is a two-person show. There are two of us. It's not Chris throwing his voice. We are co-hosts. This is something we do together. We plan everything and all that. So please do not worry. We're not going anywhere. We're not getting divorced. Dad and Dad are staying together. It's okay.
The Beardsleys are for life.
Yeah. And even if we did, we still love you.
Yeah. It's not your fault. We just have differences.
Yes.
Just not right now.
Exactly. Yes. Not going to happen.
Yeah, maybe later, once we get like a lot of money rolling in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, then when we start fighting over money and we split up and then we go on our world tours and then we wait till we're 60 and then we reunite for a special Banter with the Beardsleys reunion tour.
I think that'd actually be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward.
See, I'm pretty sure that's how it's supposed to work, right? I mean, all the movies, that's how it happens.
Look, man, you have to let fame and greed and money, that has to get to you. It has to destroy you, and then you find yourself in it. Look at Freddie Mercury in Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's actually a really good movie, by the way.
Great movie. Not really on par with like the real story, but it was entertaining. Damn it!
For what it was, yeah. As a Hollywood biopic, it was good.
Yeah, completely concur. And before we get too much deeper into everything, we're talking about biopics and stuff. I just want to, not making this a political thing at all, but just want to say a big thank you to RBG, the notorious RBG.
Yes.
For everything she gave to our country, everything she's done for different groups, different protected classes. She's really advanced us forward. Like, one person really did change the world in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she was an amazing woman, and as much as it not pains me, but you know, the phrase Trump used when he put out his thing was saying she was like a titan of law, I think is very accurate. You know, I
think it's the first thing I've actually agreed with him on.
Yeah, like I think, you know, what she did for not just women and like gender equality, even though we're not at that point yet, but like kind of giving that platform was just so amazing. And I was very truly saddened when I heard the news. Like it definitely, it's one of those things where like you kind of stop what you're doing and you're just like, fuck, like that sucks. You know, not just for the fallout of the Supreme Court and the balance or any of that other crap. It just losing someone of that stature is difficult, and it's definitely a blow to, you know, I mean, a blow to the, you know, like the country. Like it's just, you know, everything she stood for and everything she fought for. It's truly sad that she passed away, but good for her. I mean, she fought a long, hard battle with cancer. Like that sucks. You know, pancreatic cancer is a bitch, and I've had experience with that in my own family. And it's difficult. It's very painful. It's very hard to go through. And so amazing for her to put up as long as she did and, you know, give us as many years as she could.
Yeah, and that's actually, that's how my grandmother went as well, with pancreatic cancer. And it started in the liver, spread to the pancreas, just like with Judge RBG. And it was very tragic. It's very sad. And I mean, literally because of her, women are able to get checking accounts without their husbands.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds so insane but that wasn't that long ago. And RBG really paved the way for a lot of people.
Yeah, how dare they try to get their own checking accounts? What are they thinking?
It reminds me of my favorite line in the movie Lincoln, when they're all debating over the African slaves' right to vote, and then somebody yells out, "What's next? Women voters?" Which
everyone loses their shit and they throw their papers.
Like, rabble.
Yeah, that was a good scene. I think we saw the movie together, didn't we?
I believe we did. I think so.
Yeah. I believe it was Christmas Day.
Yes, it was. We did watch that
years
together.
Ago. Yeah.
One of our bro dates we go on occasion.
Exactly. Yes.
But yeah, man, aside from that tragic thing, How are you? How are things?
Things are good. They're still bearded. I am tired. It's only like 9 o'clock. But I'm exhausted. I'm in the middle of a 11-day stretch of work where I'm working 11 days in a row, and I'm on like day 5. And the last 2 days have been pretty physical, breaking down a lot of stuff and moving a lot of things. And so I'm just tired. So tomorrow, if you happen to walk into the store and there's an angry, pissed off bearded man, it's because I'm tired and I don't want to deal with your shit. So please be nice. Wear a mask. Just putting that out there in the universe for anyone. I don't think anyone's going to hear this by tomorrow because we release our episodes on Tuesday. But yeah, if you just happen to be hearing this in the universe, please be nice to retail workers. I appreciate it.
Yeah, they're people too. They are people too.
Most of us, but yes.
Yeah.
How have you been?
I've been good. I've had a very productive and super busy week. As a few of you know, I am an actor, and although everything is shut down, they're starting to slowly kind of open things up. So I've had quite a few pretty big auditions. Who knows what's going to happen with that? I did my best. I feel good about it, but that's been my week. It's actually been doing Zoom auditions, which is completely new and not a great experience, to say the least.
Nice. I know you're used to doing nude auditions, so I'm glad Zoom auditions are a new thing for you. That's awesome.
You know, you got to pay the bills.
Hey, OnlyFans, I'm just saying.
I'm not opposed. Times are tough. So yeah, man, that's been my week in a nutshell. With all that out of the way, all the cordialities and whatever you want to call them. This week I will be doing a very popular request. I think we get it like once a week. I will be doing Shadow People.
I'm going to be covering the disappearance of Frederick Valentich.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, I hope it's something I'd never heard of. And so when I came across it, I was pretty excited. So I'm hoping it's something that the story itself sounds very familiar, but it's something that I'd never heard of. So I'm hoping most people haven't heard of it either. And we learned something.
It sounds great. And I think I went first last time. So you are up, sir.
All right. Pressure. So for this week's episode, like I already said, that I'm doing the disappearance of Frederick Valentich. I wanted to do something that kind of comes from the realm of mysteries that have yet to been solved. I hope you see what I did there. Try not to get copyright infringement on anybody.
Robert Stack's ghost is going to hunt us down.
He's glaring at me right now. So anywho, my bearded friends, let's get into the story of the disappearance of Frederick Valentich. Mr. Frederick Valentich was a 20-year-old Australian pilot who disappeared off the coast of Melbourne, Australia, while on a training flight over Bass Strait. Bass Strait is the strait of water that is in between the mainland of Australia and Tasmania. So the little island that's just southeast of Australia. I also don't know if it's Bass Strait or Bass Strait. I don't think many Australians play bass. I don't know. So I'm going with bass. There's probably not much bass there, but I don't really know. I couldn't find any pronunciations on it. So I'm just going with bass. So Fred was a moderately experienced pilot he just completed around 150 hours of flight time. He held a Class 4 qualification, which in Australia means you are allowed to fly at night, but only in clear weather conditions. So like basically you can fly whenever you want as long as it's not like storming, raining, windy, anything too crazy. He just can't do it in bad weather. He can fly during the day, bad weather, but just not at night. He had also twice attempted to join the RAAF, which is the Royal Australian Air Force, not like the RAF, which is just the Royal Air Force, which is in London. And he was rejected both times he tried to join because he had inadequate education qualifications.
Ouch.
Yeah, so basically he just didn't have enough schooling to join the RAAF. I guess if they had a Royal Australian Marine Corps, he probably could have gotten in because everyone knows the Marine Corps takes anybody. Side note, that was a joke. I love my friends who are Marines, but I did grow up. My grandfather was in the Army. My dad was in the Air Force. So I grew up with people, like who were in other branches of the military in my family. So I had to make that joke. Side note, please send all hate mail to Chris at BeardedThingsPod. Thank you. So
Fair.
Back to the story. Fred had also planned to become a commercial pilot, but he failed qualifications there 5 times, and he had a history of defying orders while in the air. Kind of think of Maverick from Top Gun, where he just buzzes the tower constantly. On one occasion, he flew into a restricted zone above Sydney, Australia, and he got reprimanded. And the most damning of all, he twice committed the crime of flying into a cloud. Such a rebel. I did put side note, flying into clouds is actually like super dangerous because especially for smaller aircrafts, like there's a lot of air turbulence and a lot of like different stuff going on inside of a cloud. So it's actually very dangerous. So I get why they were mad. And the Australian government was actually trying to press charges for him flying into the clouds. And that just created a whole like mental picture of like the scene of like he's sitting in prison and like the big bad like tatted up prisoner like comes up to him and he's like, Fred's sitting on the bench and he goes, "So newbie, what are you in for?" And Fred just like lets out this long deep sigh in a real gruff voice, says, "Flew into a couple clouds." And the tough guy is like, "Oh shit, like never mind, like no fuck with this guy." And he
Take my
walks away
fruit
and Fred
cup,
just
please.
like glances up and he glares at clouds that are like passing by in the sky. So that's what goes on in my mind when you hear about someone flying through clouds. So onto our flight. Fred was making a planned 125 nautical mile flight in a Cessna 182L light aircraft. A Cessna is, you see them a lot in like civilian pilots. It's like the 1 or 2 seaters, like the ones you see kind of flying overhead all the time that are flying at relatively low altitude.
They're the ones on the freeway signs were like speed monitored by aircraft.
Exactly. Yeah, that's like kind of what a Cessna looks like. We'll put a picture of a Cessna on the Instagram and Facebook and all the different stuff so you can kind of see what it looks like. So his flight began on October 21st, 1978. He took off at 6:19 and everything was going great. He did about 40 miles along the coast and he kind of turned and he was crossing over the strait. And at 7:06, he radioed the Melbourne Air Traffic Control to report that he was being followed by an unidentified aircraft. He stated that he saw 4 bright lights that he interpreted to be landing lights of a larger aircraft. So if I don't know if you've seen like when people like a big plane that goes to land, there's like those spotlights that are kind of on like the front of the plane that look down and it helps them like light up the runway. That's what he was seeing. The air traffic controller, one Mr. Steve Roby, radioed back to him telling that the area was clear and there's no traffic in the area. So Fred tells Roby that the aircraft seems to be playing a game with him by flying over multiple times at high rates of speed. He then corrects himself and tells the controller that it doesn't appear to be an aircraft. He says it has a long shape and is metallic and added that he started seeing a green light. He then says it vanishes only seconds later to tell Roby that it's approaching him again. He then says it's hovering above him. He concludes his radio transmission by definitively saying it is not an aircraft. This is followed by 17 seconds of radio silence, and there's an open microphone, and you can hear the sounds of metallic scraping. After this, the audio cuts out, and I found the transcript of the radio chat, so I'm actually going to read that like verbatim for you real quick. So, Valentich, is there any known traffic below 5,000 feet? Roby, no known traffic. Valentich, seems to be a large aircraft below 5,000. Roby, what type of aircraft is it? Valentich, I cannot confirm. It is 4 bright. It seems to me like landing lights. The aircraft has just passed over me at least 1,000 feet above. Roby, Roger, and it is a large aircraft? Confirm. Valentich, unknown due to the speed it's traveling. Is there any Air Force aircraft in the vicinity? Roby, no known aircraft in the vicinity. Valentich, it's approaching right now from due east towards me. There's 2 seconds of radio silence. It seems to me that he is playing some sort of game. He's flying over me 2-3 times and at times speeds I cannot identify. Roby, Roger, what is your actual level? Valentich, my level is 4,500. 4500. Roby, and can confirm you cannot identify the aircraft. Valentich, affirmative. Roby, Roger, stand by. Valentich, it is not an aircraft. There's 2 seconds of radio silence. Roby interrupts him and says, can you describe the aircraft? Valentich, as it's flying past, it's a long shape. Silence for 3 seconds. I cannot identify more than it has such speed. He's silent for 3 seconds. It is now before me. It's right above me, Melbourne. Roby, and how large would the object be? Valentich, it seems like it is stationary. What I'm doing right now is orbiting, and the thing is just orbiting above me as well. It's got a green light and some sort of metallic, like it's shiny on the outside. There's 5 seconds of silence. It just vanished. Would you know what kind of aircraft this is I've got? Is this military? Roby, confirm the aircraft has vanished. Valentich, say again. Roby, is the aircraft still with you? Valentich, it's no. Silence for 2 seconds. It's now approaching from the southwest. My engine is rough idling. I've got it set at 23, 24, and this thing is coughing. Roby, Roger, what are your intentions? Valentich, my intentions are to go to King Island. Melbourne, that strange aircraft is hovering on top of me again. Silence for 2 seconds. It is hovering. It is not an aircraft. This is followed by 17 seconds of silence with the open microphone, and there's audible, unidentified metallic scraping sounds and noises. And that's the end of the transcript.
Jesus.
So, yeah. Like, kind of crazy. Like, reading that, like, even reading it again right now, like, I kind of got chills. So almost immediately, a search and rescue mission is started, and they begin looking for wreckage of the plane. This is kind of like, it was around sunset, it was night, really hard for them to find things. So by morning, the search, they included a ship on the water, a military anti-submarine airplane that's equipped with radar that can pinpoint objects under the water, and several civilian aircrafts, but they never find any wreckage. On October 25th, they call off the search, stating that no trace of the wreckage was found. At this point, the Bureau of Air Safety Investigation takes over, and they do a report, and in May 1982, so about 4 years after the incident, their investigation is released, and they say that they concluded that the outcome of the flight was, quote, presumed fatal, but that the reason for the disappearance of the aircraft was, again, quote, cannot be determined. I do want to point out that they did find an engine cowl flap off the coast of Flinders Island 5 years after the disappearance. The cowl flap is kind of like, if you're looking like the instrument panel, and they have all like the little the gizmos, and like the plane has like the steering wheel. The cowl is like that kind of long part that goes in towards the engine, like kind of like the steering column, and that was like the metallic cowl flap underneath that.
And it went down on Flanders Island?
They found it off the coast of Flinders Island 5 years after he disappeared.
Stupid Flanders.
That's what in my head. It was like, "Hidely ho there, cowl flap." So the investigators, they asked the RAAF to identify the part and see if it was something that came off his plane, and see if they can find the likelihood of it being Fred's plane. The RAF said that they can only identify parts by the serial numbers, and they didn't know the serial number that the cowl flap had on his plane, but they didn't have the exact serial number from his plane, but they confirmed that it was within the range of serial numbers for his type of plane. So basically, they made a bunch of cowl flaps, and the range of serial numbers for the type of plane he had, it could have matched the time the plane was built and all that stuff. Like, it's in that range, but we can't say exactly for sure if it's that one. They also stated that the likelihood of the cowl surviving 5 years on the open water and traveling 334 kilometers or 207 miles from where his last known position was to that island is very unlikely. So officially, he's missing, presumed dead. But what happened? His father, kind of a dick move. After he died, his father was like, yeah, he's kind of crazy. He told local newspaper and investigators that Frederick was obsessed with UFOs and believed that he was going to be attacked at any moment. A lot of skeptics point to this and say that, well, Fred was planning something elaborate, and he either planned to disappear or commit suicide and kind of make it like a self-fulfilling prophecy about UFOs. His family counters that by saying, you know, he'd recently just started dating. He had a girlfriend, and he was like really much in love with her, and he was genuinely seemed happy for the first time in a long time. So they kind of say there's no way in hell this guy would have committed suicide or just disappeared off the face of the earth. Another explanation people point to is they think he may have flown off and he landed his plane in a nearby town called Cape Otway. Investigators point out the fact that he had plenty of fuel by the time he left. He had like 800 liters of fuel, so he had plenty of fuel to make it anywhere he could go. And he could have made the trip. Melbourne police also point to the fact that they saw mysterious lights that were landing near Cape Otway. A big kind of flaw in this theory says that once his audio cuts out, there's no other signatures on radar from him. There's no other planes in the area, so they don't get any blips or anything from radar. And so air traffic controllers, they kind of rule this one out. I don't know if this is a case like in the movie Outbreak where Major Salt goes and flies the helicopter on the truck and he's like on the freeway, so like the ground clutter clears it up so they can't pick up on radar. I don't think a Cessna plane could fly that low without anyone hearing it because it's a prop
Yeah.
engine, so like you can hear like they're kind of loud. So I don't really know if that's possible. Finally, in 2013, a former U.S. Army or U.S. Air Force pilot began to investigate, and he reviewed the evidence, and he believes Frederick may have become confused, and he inverted his aircraft. So like he flipped it, and he was flying upside down. And he says that the lights he was seeing were his own navigation lights. He does point out in his own like saying like this is what it could be. He also says that, but with the type of plane he had, he wouldn't be able to fly upside down for any more than a few moments because it's a gravity assist fuel thing. So like it needs gravity to pump the fuel through it, and so if he flips upside down,
Yeah,
he
it'll
can't actually
stall.
exactly, yeah. He also proposed that if it wasn't the him flying upside down, he thinks he fell into something called a graveyard spiral. It's also called a death spiral or a suicide spiral. And basically, what happens is when a pilot becomes disoriented and the instruments kind of begin to fail because of weather, and he kind of spirals around thinking he's flying, he's turning, he's going places, but he's literally just losing altitude and spiraling and going down before they crash. The RAAF and air traffic controllers pointed to say that there was no inclement weather. He never reported instrument malfunction, and the conditions for his flight were perfect. So they don't think this is the issue. More interesting theories have come out, and of course, they come from ufologists or people that study UFOs. They believe that Frederick Valentich was abducted by aliens. um, they point to his description of a craft as being long, metallic, and giving off a green glow. They say it's a UFO. They also point out that a farmer took a picture of a mysterious object flying off the coast of Melbourne while he was photographing the sunset. He came out 6 years after he disappeared. He said, "You know what? I've been sitting on this for a while. Nobody came out, said anything. This is what I saw." He originally assumed it was dirt or dust, but he had the photo examined, and his negatives reviewed by experts. They determined the photo was legit. They sent the photo and negatives to America, and because we're number one.
Yeah,
And
America.
an American photography analysis said that it was legit. That it wasn't an error on the photos. It was an error on the negatives. Like there is an object, and they stated that the object appeared metallic, and that it appeared to be passing through a cloud of exhaust. So like kind of a hazy, shimmery effect. But when like you see like behind an airplane, or like they talk about like the contrails, the exhaust of the plane.
What
They say that
what was the time frame on this? What year roughly?
this was 1979 was when he disappeared, or 1978, excuse me, when he disappeared. So the photo was taken that night of 1979.
Gotcha.
More recently, the people in America have gone through and they've done more research, and they ultimately, there's another photo analyst who worked for the CIA, I believe. He ultimately said it looks like an error with developing. I don't really, I guess if you're putting the negatives in like the acid wash and you're developing your photos back in, the late 70s, early 80s, like, it's easy to kind of doctor the negatives, but it seems weird that they would go through all these other things and then like, okay, like all of a sudden it's fake.
Yeah, even to like I had to take a film class before, and they talked about like film and like how you can screw it up, and to screw up a negative to the point where there's a believable image in it, like
Exactly.
a believable distinct image. It's really really hard.
Yeah, like I've seen the image. I'll try to get it. I don't know if it's copyrighted or if I can find it. I only found it on one website. I'll see if I can grab it and put it on the Instagram and like the social medias. But like it's pretty blurry. Like if you zoom in, you can't really see anything because it's a camera from the late 70s. But I mean, it definitely looks like there's something there, and it doesn't really look like a scratch or like it's a solid object. Like it looks like if someone faked it, they put like drops of stuff on the negative, and like they went to time. Which not saying they didn't do that, but it seems pretty legit. So decades later, the disappearance it's still a mystery. I went through a bunch of different sites and a bunch of different things. I had a bunch of tabs open again. I found one website claiming that was all bullshit, and then it's an elaborate hoax. However, there was recently in 2004 a file was unclassified by the RAAF where they said they did not believe it was a hoax, and they actually spent the time. They sent the audio recording to America because again, we the best. And they had linguistic analysts from NASA and the FBI review the audio footage, and they say that he was determined that like his stress and fear were real. Like he wasn't faking this. Like he legit was like scared for his life. Some sites document his fear of UFOs and say he staged it. They others say it was like a suicide. Others say it was like a UFO, and even further, some say that he just wanted to get away from it all. So he ate a Snickers and he's like, "I'm out."
Deuces.
So did a UFO abduct Frederick Valentich? I don't know, but I want to believe. And that, my bearded friends, is the story of the disappearance of Frederick Valentich.
And the truth is out there.
Always. So yeah, it's crazy. Like to this day, it's still an unsolved or mystery that is yet to be solved. It's still, he's officially, the case is closed. He is missing. He's presumed dead. But there's really no concrete evidence. Like there's people that say like, oh yeah, he probably crashed because he got disoriented. But they never found the wreckage. They found one cowl flap that may or may not have belonged to it 5 years after the search. And they were out that night, the next day, never saw any wreckage. And they pointed to like, if they did this death spiral and he was like coming out, there would have been wreckage everywhere. They would have found something. And they found nothing.
Yeah, and I've heard the audio from this before, and it's creepy. It's legitimately creepy. You can hear, it sounds like a soda can being crushed in the background. So if you want to kind of creep yourself out, highly recommend looking at our YouTube. I will link to it. It's an interesting case. It's very, very creepy.
And now we before we get into banter with the Beardsleys, we are going to take a quick commercial break.
Yeah.
And welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that wonderful commercial from Mr. Christopher Alton.
Yeah, I do what I can. Got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So now that we've paid our bills, we did your topic, it's time for Banter with the Beardsleys. I swear, I'm working on it. I'm sorry.
We need something.
I know, I just feel guilty every time, but I swear there is something. I'll find the right tune and then we'll have a whole segment. It's going to be nice. I swear.
Nice. Have a nice little ditty.
Yeah. So with the Banter with the Beardsleys, how does this work? What happens?
So Banter with the Beardsleys is kind of off the cuff, kind of fun, something we don't really know going in. We hopefully will be getting more user submissions. We get them as they come in. We throw them in the queue. So if we actually have a couple listener submissions, which is awesome. So we're going to start reading those. But it's something that we really don't have an idea coming into it. It's more just kind of, there's no script, there's no topic. It's just, okay, this is what we're going to talk about for the day. And we kind of just go back and forth. We give our instantaneous thoughts and feedback on it. And we chat about it. We have a little bit of banter.
With the Beardsleys. Which is us. So, yeah. So today's comes from a listener, and what up to Shaylee? Thank you for your submission. The question, it's a age-old question that you would get like on a test, and you just see how you write and all that, but I think it's actually kind of a fun one. So, with that being said, Tyler, is there any event in the world's history that you would like to have witnessed?
Any event in the history of the world?
Yeah, in all of mankind, is there one thing that you would have liked to have seen happen? Like, would you have liked to have been a fly in the wall when, like, Reese's met peanut butter and chocolate and changed the world?
Oh, my goodness. Or find out how to make the right Twix as opposed to the left Twix?
That is a big controversy we can get into later.
It's magic. I don't know. I feel like... Well, no, that doesn't make any sense because no one killed Hitler. I was going to say, like, seeing someone kill Hitler... That's also very morbid to see people die. But
well, I mean, it's also like a life-changing event, right? Like going to see the Abraham Lincoln getting assassinated or JFK or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know if it's necessarily like a specific event. I'm just gonna go with maybe seeing like the Sistine Chapel being painted or something like Michelangelo did, like just seeing some of these like great works of arts that like we look back on them and say like this is like the greatest art that's ever been in the history of mankind. I think it'd be something cool to just see their process of like, did they get artist block or writer's block or whatever you want to call it, like, and they're just staring at a blank canvas and he's like, I don't know what to do, like I'm gonna paint this chick Lisa. You know what I mean? Like just kind of see like how they go through it and just see how these great artists develop something. So I guess not like a specific time period, but kind of in that vein.
like the Renaissance, like show up and just watch one of the masters
just kind of
do the thing
see the Ninja Turtles come through and all this amazing artwork
with their ooze.
Yeah.
That's that. I never really thought about it like that, but that's actually kind of cool. I want to change my answer, but I'm committed. But yeah, no, that's actually kind of a cool thing to be like, be able to time travel for a minute, go see, the Mona Lisa getting painted, and then go to the Louvre. Like, I watched this happen. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That'd be kind of neat.
Yeah, I want to know if Mona Lisa really smiled, or if he just drew the faint smile, or all that. I just want to know.
Was it him in drag, which has also long been rumored?
Exactly. Yeah.
Which would be that would be kind of a funny thing to like appear into. Like he's in his, his little studio, dressed in drag, looking in the mirror, painting himself like Wild Bill in Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, exactly.
And Da Vinci has changed forever.
Exactly. Yeah, I just want to point out that we know it was Da Vinci, not Michelangelo, that did the drawing or the painting. Sorry,
we got learned it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think mine, although it's going to be a little cliche, I'm very interested in the process. I would like to see the Great Pyramids being built.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, just because like nobody really knows. Everybody kind of has their guess. It's something we really can't replicate today. So how the heck did they do that 40 or 50 years ago? However long the Great Pyramids are built. I'm a millennial kid. I don't know. But yeah, I always thought that would be fascinating. Were there aliens? I don't know. Do they have logs that they just kept rolling in front of the big blocks and just kept pushing it? Maybe.
Yeah.
More than likely and probably, but I want to see it.
Yeah, I know they had like hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of like slaves at the time period. So like they had the manpower, but that's still like you're taking these like 2-ton cuts of limestone or whatever the hell it was and dragging them across the fucking sand. Like that's crazy
for like miles. Like it wasn't like a quick thing. It was like 40 or 50 miles.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something like kind of a fun factoid about myself, other than everyone knows I'm already a huge fucking nerd because of this podcast. But for the longest time, I actually wanted to become like an archaeologist. I wanted to study like ancient Egypt. Like I was fascinated with it from like 5th grade to probably like, I don't know, maybe freshman year. Like I was obsessed with like ancient Egypt and the Egyptian culture and all that stuff. Like, so that was something I freaking loved. And at some point I have it on my list to cover like the pyramids of Giza and like the Sphinx and all those different things. But yeah, that would actually been really cool. I should have thought of that. I'm really mad at myself.
Dibs.
Yeah, past Tyler is so disappointed in future Tyler.
Yeah, same here. I really was into it for a very long time. And then I don't know how old I was when I discovered that like they go places where there's like tons of spiders. And that literally gave me a career change because I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And like watching, hosts like Josh Gates, for example, going into these like ancient pyramids and these giant like scorpions and spiders on the walls, and their hosts or guides are always like, "Oh yeah, don't touch that; it's going to kill you."
I'm pretty sure that's where the Scorpion King comes from, right?
That's The Rock. That's where The Rock was born.
Speaking of The Rock, did you see? I think it was on his Instagram or something. I saw it today. He had he had to get back to filming because he's filming Black Adam right now.
Oh right.
And there was like wherever he lives, I don't know where he lives, but there was like a storm and all the power got cut out. And so he was trying to leave his house, but his gate wouldn't open. And so he tried to like manually override it with like the hydraulic, opening, and it wouldn't work. So he ripped the fucking gate off the hinges and like off the brick wall and everything because he's like, I got to get to work. Like, he called like the gate company, like, it'll be 45 minutes. He's like, nope, I'm late for work. And he ripped the hinges off. It's insane. If you find on it, I think it was on his Instagram, I saw it. There's just like this big, like, it's it's a gate that you see at like, these mansions, these big, like the big, like wrought iron gates. He just ripped it off the fucking brick wall hinges. It was insane.
Of course it did, because he's The Rock.
Yeah, he's The Rock, and he's literally Black Adam. Like, he's a superhero. He's just like, fuck it. I gotta rip shit off. Sorry, yeah, that was our Rock corner of the day. We love you, Rock.
I remember when he came out, and like, just to go on a Rock tangent for a second. Sorry, folks. When he came out and he was like super Polynesian.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I don't know what he was for a while, and now he's just like the world's biggest, nicest actor.
Yeah.
So I love you, Rock. You're swell. Yeah, and as much as I'd like hate to admit it, I really like your movies. They're a lot of fun.
You mean he's swole?
Well played.
Thank you. I'll be here all night. Don't forget the tippy waitress.
He's like ungodly swole though.
Yeah, it's insane. His fucking workouts are ridiculous.
There was I forget what online magazine it was. It was like Vox or something like that.
Maxim magazine.
It might have been. Well, what they did was one of the editors had to eat like The Rock for a week.
Oh god, it's crazy.
It's insane. Like it almost killed the guy. Like he had to go to the doctor because it was just way too much.
7,000 calories a day or something like that. It's crazy.
Like that's nuts. And it's all like lean stuff. Like his calories aren't like normal. It's not like Big Mac calories.
Yeah.
It's like he gets the Big Mac calories from eating like super lean steak.
Yeah, the protein and all that stuff. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's nuts. And it just goes to show if you're dedicated and you really push yourself, you too can spend thousands of dollars a week on a diet.
Exactly. Yeah, so you have thousands of dollars to spend buying all that food, and you just rip a gate off its hinges. And be like, yeah, I'll buy a new one. No big deal.
Oh, so to wrap it all up, that was our banter with the Beardsleys. Slightly off topic with The Rock, but is it ever off topic with The Rock?
You never know, because you just got to know what The Rock is cooking. If you can smell what The Rock
There you go. If you could smell what The Rock is cooking. That was his only catchphrase, right?
I think
it doesn't matter what his other catchphrases were.
Yeah, jabroni. I also love that like his ultimate finishing move was a fucking like the people's elbow. Like all he did was like it's such a shitty like. Come on, man.
Oh, and I don't want to go further down the Rock hole, but we're going to.
Hey,
did you hear how that move was invented?
He probably tripped and fell on something like, that's my finishing move.
No, him and The Undertaker were like really good friends, and they used to like to really like push each other in the ring. And so he would always try and make The Undertaker break character. So he'd oversell the punches. That's when you would see him flipping all over the place.
Yeah.
And when he had a win, he's like, okay, I got to make this guy laugh. So that's where the people's elbow came from, was like, how far can I push this?
That's ridiculous.
And it worked, and it's still hilarious.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. All right, this has been the wrestling corner.
Right. And not just wrestling. This is like old school WWF wrestling.
Yeah. The Undertaker was the shit. I fucking love The Undertaker.
I still love The Undertaker. He's hilarious and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah. All right, so before this strays even further, let's get into your topics.
Sorry about that, everybody, but not really, because it was a lot of fun.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was good. It was good for me. So mine is, it's actually going to be a little bit different than anything I think we've done before on the show. Just like a complete tangent off script right now. There's not a lot of evidence, but there's a lot of experience for a lot of people. So just a bit of a warning there. I have no closure to it, and you'll see why as we delve in. So the subject.
Stop talking slowly
I'm just going to slowly walk away from
out.
the microphone until I'm gone. So I'm doing the shadow people, and we've gotten a few messages about this, and I wanted to put it off, but I think it's safe to say about once a week, someone would ask us for this subject.
Yeah.
It's a little bit personal for me. The house I lived in for a decade, which was essentially across the park from your house, Tyler.
Yep.
Was completely infested with shadow people.
Yeah, your house is creepy as fuck.
Yeah, it was bad. And actually the next line is so much so my friend and your brother Lauren hated coming over. He called it the hell house and screw your house, but in other words. I have a few personal stories that I'm saving for an upcoming special episode where we share our personal experiences and stories that led us to making this podcast. But you, dear listener, are our priority, and you wanted to hear it, so here we are. It's a pretty heavy topic to do justice in a relatively small time frame, but I'm going to do my best. So if I leave anything out, you can send your hate mail to Tyler at BeardedThingsPodcast.com. Have you ever felt like you were being watched? Perhaps you were, right? Well, your house is also creepy, for the record. Yes. Perhaps you were doing stuff around your house and you catch what looked like a person in your peripheral vision. Maybe you're laying in bed, feeling sleep wash over your body when a silhouette of a man in a hat peeking around your doorframe.
What?
Maybe you were walking down your darkened hallway when all of a sudden, a figure darker than the hallway itself dashes around a corner as if trying to hide. This is the story of shadow people. These entities almost always used to be seen out of the corner of the eye and very briefly, but more and more people are beginning to see them straight on and for longer periods of time. Some experiencers say that they have even seen eyes, usually red, on these shadow beings.
Of Of course, because red eyes mean it's evil.
Always. That's just science. One of our listeners sent in a story I'd like to share, and a big thank you to Amanda, who said we can call her anything, just not Shirley, so I guess we won't call her Shirley.
I guess it's not that serious.
Hey, I think that's what she was going for, but there was no setup for it. Anyhow, which I have in my script. Anyhow, Amanda writes, "Hello to you. Here is my story. When I was around 12 or 13, I was going through a lot of shit with my family life, per the usual. And it was at the point where things were going downhill fast. So, of course, one night when it was storming, I was laying in bed and everything was dark. Everything was dark except when the lightning would strike and light up the interior of the house for a couple of seconds. There's not a ton I remember from that day, but I remember laying there, not feeling afraid, but definitely feeling off. At this point in my life, I was also sleeping with the door open. This event made me stop. I lay there, each flash showing me the house that I had been in for years, until a flash showed me the silhouette of a man in my doorway. While I couldn't make out the man's features, he was wearing an extremely distinct hat, much like the silhouette of an old fedora or top hat of some sort. I don't remember feeling afraid, like I know I would now if an unknown person was in my room in the middle of the night. I just remember feeling that that entity was being there with me. I didn't talk about what I had seen to anyone for years because I didn't really feel fear from this man. The scariest part is that 8 or 9 years later, and this is directed at me, when our asses met is when I realized this is a well-known occurrence among many people, and it usually comes at a time when life seems to be crumbling. That's the shit that freaks me out. Just how comfortable I was having him there with me just for those few seconds. I should note Amanda was a former employee of mine. We had to shut down due to COVID. And although I never said it during work, she was a phenomenal employee and a son I never had, and in no way did I force her to write that. But all the nice stuff, she did pay me. So I'm putting that out there.
Nice.
So there are generally 2 descriptions of shadow people, but the actions are generally the same with slight variances. The first description is of a silhouette of a slender man, essentially like a man hiding in a shadow, except the figure is darker than the darkness of that area. So if you see him in your living room and your living room's dimly lit, you're going to see like a darker silhouette of a man in that darkness. Perfect. The second is referred to as the man in the hat. There are a few descriptions of him. Essentially, he's seen as a shadowy figure as well, except like in Amanda's story, he's wearing what appears to be a fedora. The man in the hat, or the Hat Man, is believed to be evil and often a type of an omen. It's also commonly believed that the Hat Man is some sort of leader or high-ranking shadow person somehow. The other shadows seem to follow his lead. The descriptions, for a lack of better example, are often like the figure on the neighborhood watch signs, like the dude with the hat and the trench coat with the beady eyes. Yeah. That's essentially what it looks like. And my apologies to listeners. I'm in the valley in Los Angeles. It's about 100 degrees, and my air conditioner kicked on, so you're going to hear a slight hum in the background. Back to the story. Generally, when people see these figures, they're in their peripheral vision and quickly duck or hide behind something. They're gone, like literally in a blink of an eye. The phenomenon of shadow people is worldwide, reaching across just about every culture and religion. Some cultures call them watchers, some demons, others non-human spirits or earth spirits. As a bit of a superstitious person, I would like to issue a quick warning. Talking about this next part is believed to trigger it for some people. So if sleep paralysis is something that you're sensitive about or is something you experience regularly, feel free to jump ahead up for the next 30 seconds or so. Okay, now that they're gone. Shadow people are commonly associated with sleep paralysis. It's in fact one of the scientific explanations for the experience. I actually went through a medical journal from the United Kingdom. It's the United Kingdom National Health Service, and read a peer-reviewed paper which did study the hallucinations caused by sleep paralysis. And it generally triggers by reactions between different proteins during REM sleep. It doesn't quite fit the experience, though. While yes, there tends to be some sort of hallucination associated with sleep paralysis, such as the old hag syndrome. That's when, during sleep paralysis, you feel or hallucinate someone, often an old woman, sitting on your chest or trying to strangle you. And that goes back, I believe the earliest reports were in the 1400s. So it's a very old thing. I think it actually dates back further. The problem with that is most encounters happen while the person is wide awake. Here's a personal story that rules out sleep paralysis. My step-grandfather was a pretty badass dude. He served in the Vietnam War as a Navy SEAL and could kick my ass well into his 60s, and he did, believe me. He was also a pastor at his church. I lived with my grandparents for most of my teen years, and on this particular night, I was out doing God knows what. But my grandma called me with a sense of urgency in her voice, asking me to come home as quickly as I could. My grandfather was a lively guy, used to joke around a lot, and was very rarely serious. I got home about 20 minutes later, and just a quick description of my grandfather. He was a dark-skinned Native American mixed Mexican man, so he kind of had that very dark skin tone. And when I got home, he was completely pale. That worried me. I asked what happened, and he didn't want to talk about it, and he went straight to bed. My grandma gave me a hand signal just to kind of like, wait a minute. So after she was sure he was asleep, she told me what happened. They were pulling in their driveway after church, maybe around 9 at night. They used to keep all the lights on and the TV on, so it looked like someone was always home. And the living room had a giant living room window with curtains that were always open. I think it was about 20 feet long or so. It was huge. And it faced the driveway, so if you pull in, you're facing that giant window. She said as they pulled in, they saw a figure of a man walking through the living room. As the headlights washed over him, he ducked below the ledge. My grandpa, being one of the toughest guys I've ever met, he grabbed a lead pipe he kept in his truck for protection. He told my grandma to call me home while he cleared the house. Again, former wartime Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
He's more than well trained to handle this. She said she called me while she watched him go through the house and make sure it was actually safe and it was clear there was nobody inside. She watched him check all the doors and locks, and everything was locked. She said that's when he got quiet. He was wide awake and trained to identify threats, right? Like, this is his thing. Also, they both experienced it. Granted, it's not the only paranormal event that took place in that house, but we'll get into that in that special episode we talked about. So, who or what are these things? After spending personal years researching this phenomenon, the general consensus describes them as menacing. Other believers and paranormal authors can't seem to agree whether shadow people are either evil, helpful, neutral, and some people even speculate that shadow people may be the extra-dimensional inhabitants of another universe, or even even alien. And I saw plenty of articles about both, which were just, it was interesting. It wasn't it didn't work for me, but it's there if you want to go down that road. Personally, I don't really know. There's no way to prove or disprove any theories about a phenomenon that is so mysterious and happens so quickly and without warning. Science finds it virtually impossible to catalog or study such phenomena in any methodical way. All we can do at present is to document personal experiences and try to piece together what the shadow people phenomenon might be. Perhaps it's an old mystery becoming more recognizable. Perhaps it represents a doorway to and from different planes of existence. Or perhaps they're simply just shadows and imagination. What we do know is they're very common. If it's something you've experienced, you aren't alone and you're not crazy. If sharing your story will help, we would love to listen. And if it's something you don't want shared publicly, we will absolutely keep your story private.
Exactly.
Please reach out to us if you need to. I really wish there was more definitive answers to this worldwide phenomenon, but unfortunately, all we have is our experience to try and piece together. And that is my story of shadow people.
That was good.
Yeah, it was, just dropped my phone. It was a lot of fun and interesting to just be up all night reading about that, not scaring the crap out of myself. But yeah, they've spanned all over the globe. I was reading a thing in India, and in India, I forget the term for it, but it's something along the lines of the Watchers. Aborigines have something similar to that. The Native Americans have walkers or shapeshifters. I forget the term for that.
The skinwalkers.
The skinwalkers. So they think they're all part of that same class of creature. It's just so bizarre that it's such a worldwide phenomena and nobody really knows anything about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think more people have experiences than have actually talked about.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was the part I really liked about in your, like the closing that you had, where like, if someone's had an experience, you're not crazy. I think, September is, like mental health awareness, like suicide awareness. Like, there's a lot that, I think a lot of people think that if they see something or they hear something, they think that like, oh, like I'm crazy, I'm not going to say anything. But especially with like you're saying, like the shadow people, it's so common and like it's transcends like borders and cultures and regions that there's so much to it that there's got to be something, there's going to be someone that's had an experience or like, they'd be able to like talk about something where, you're going to find someone to talk to, even if it's us, reach out to us. Like you said, like if you don't want, we won't read it on the podcast if you don't want to hear it, but it's something, definitely talk about it. You're not crazy. It's scary, especially when you see stuff like it's like, I don't want to deal with this, but it's like you talk about it and you feel a little bit better, even if it's just like, validating like, okay, maybe this did happen, like something is there, like sometimes that, it makes it easier for people, like I believe you.
So yeah, man, that was my story of shadow people.
Nice. That was great.
Yeah, thank you very much, man.
Yeah, good episode. It was a lot of good stuff. It was good. It was fun.
Yeah, I think some great, interesting conversations, both of them unknown. Your guy disappeared forever.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what the heck my guys are. So
yeah, that's sometimes the hardest part with like stuff like this, where it's like there is no closure, there's no definitive like yes or no. There's stuff that like science can't prove it, and there's just stuff that we can't figure out, that it's just out there for us, like you said, to experience. We're not going to nail it down. It's like this is exactly what it is, but like it just gets chalked up to these are experiences that are had by thousands of people across the world.
Yeah, and with just to touch on the shadow people one more time, what I think is interesting is the specifics. They specifically see a man in a type of fedora. Like that is so exact, and they see that around the globe.
Yeah.
And why a fedora?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you have any stories, if you know anything about this or have information that I didn't touch on and I need to update my information, I gladly will. Feel free to reach out.
Yeah.
And where can they do that?
They can find us on our social medias. Well, on Instagram is @BeardedThingsPod. Facebook is facebook.com/BeardedThings. YouTube is BeardedThingsPod. Twitter is @BeardedThings. We also have a website. It's BeardedThings.com. There's a contact us form on that page. You can fill that out. You can also email us at contactus@BeardedThings.com. Again, all hate mail goes to Chris at BeardedThings.com. Find one of those things and just reach out to us, or if you don't feel comfortable about it, like send us a comment, send us a message and be like, hey, like here's my phone number, call me, text me, like whatever it takes, let us know. We will be here. If it's something you want to share on the pod, please let us know. Feel free to share this on the podcast or keep it between us. We will also definitely do that. Chris and I talk about anything, any kind of feedback we get, any sort of messages we get, we talk about it, we discuss it. So we would definitely be open to any feedback you guys have. Just let us know. We're here for you.
Yeah. So great job tonight.
Thank you.
And
job.
Yeah, thank you, man. And we will
Good
talk.
job, solo host of Bearded Things.
I did this all by myself. I'm working on my ventriloquist act.
One-man show. Put the team on his back.
So great job tonight. And
thank you.
Tune in next week when we will talk to you guys later.
Bye.